Hi everyone. Yes, you are seeing me. Forgive my appearance. We just got back from working on a project. I want to say maybe half an hour ago. Went to our favorite diner, got our groove on. Unfortunately, there was cheesecake involved. Don't tell anyone. But I am completing this series pretty much. There could be some bonus material that comes out after this 3-part series on how to go to a live auction in an actual auction house and how to come away with boxes and boxes of treasures. Up above, I don't know if you could see it on the shelf. Wait, up here, there are some of the items that we actually got from an auction house. There's antique microphones. There's a chandelier. That's a chandelier over there. There's this blue antique glass covered, I'm going to call it a compote. There's a relish set, which is right there, and a rabbit, which is the gray thing, which is right here, a tea caddy, which is right there, as well as some other stuff. So when you go to these auctions, and all of those, everything I pointed to is an actual real antique, which means that it's 80 years old or older. All of those items are signed or have the maker's hallmark on them. So, you know, those are things you want to watch out for when you're buying antiques, is making sure you're getting something that's genuine. And with our decades of knowledge, we're pretty good at knowing what's what. Actually, in this little corner right here, there are a few items that we got from that same auction. So everything I just pointed out to you, I'll give you 2 seconds to guess how much we paid just for that. We actually left with boxes of other things, but just for that, and as well as a lot of things we donated, so forget about that. Just looking at what's up there, and actually I think I could tilt this. You can see some of the items up there. How much do you think we paid for those items at auction? 4, 3, oh, I'm sorry, I only gave you 2 seconds. We paid less than $10. It was like $7 and some change. So round it up, let's just say $10. So how much will all of that sell for? That's at least a few $100s, maybe even more, because of the chandelier. So there we're looking at probably $375. I would say on the lowest side, $350. And it's, there was only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 items. So multiply it, do the math, check out our return on investment. It is outstanding. And actually, we already made our money back because 3 of those items have sold. The 2 microphones have sold, as well as this right here. That is a hose that, it's not a hose, it's a nozzle that goes on a fire hose. So those are already sold. Excellent profit. So, going to an auction, getting registered for that number, really important if you're trying to get resources for reselling and if you want to get them cheap. So now here is a huge, 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 huge secret. And I'm going to give you actually several secrets as to how I personally work the system. And remember, we own an auction house. We have been dealing in the auction business for, a long time. We're coming from the back of the house to the front of the house, being owners. We know what happens in the back as well as in the front. We know what happens as items are sourced, as items are selected for auction, we know what happens when we're choosing items to go in the auction catalog, which the majority of the public will concentrate on. And we know that there will be items that we will put in the auction that are not advertised. There's no photographs of anything. Sometimes you'll get a photograph of just, here's a bunch of stuff in a box. But you know, no one's pulling things out. No one's saying this is the best thing in the box. No one's saying that. And so that's where we're coming from as far as you being able to actually get great items at really inexpensive. I mean, you're paying less than a penny a piece sometimes. So one of the things you need to know is, you know, when you and watch our part 1 and part 2 of this series. All 3 of these videos work in concert. If you only watch one part, you are missing some key information. So this part is, like I said, I'm going to give you some information, but I really need you to look at those other videos as well. And take a moment and give us a thumbs up. Yes, I need lotion because after coming from this pic, we had to sterilize ourselves. And also leave a comment down below if there's any questions whatsoever about anything in any of these videos, or if you just need more information on something or have a general question that wasn't covered at all. So, thumbs up. I'll wait. It literally you should have done it. Did you do it? Did you hit the, I hope you did. But anyway, so one of the things that you want to do is know, you know, this is after you've selected the auction houses you want to deal with, and you've, you know, checked the background of the owners, you check the business's ratings. And another thing that I didn't talk about with the ratings of the business, I didn't really go into that, is when you're looking at the ratings, a lot of those ratings, I mean, we already know that it's a gamed system, because people are making their employees go in and tell you that this is the best place to work ever, and it might actually suck royal. Also, so what you want to do is hopefully really read those reviews to make sure you're, you know, trusting the words of someone who actually has done business with those auction houses. You don't want to read the reviews of people who work there. And usually if you read between the lines, you can kind of tell, you know, what's what. As well as I stated, check with the Better Business Bureau. You can also check with your local police department. They will let you know if there's been any complaints. They may not be able to give you details, but they can definitely tell you if there have been complaints. You just simply tell them, I'm looking at doing business with this organization. I am looking at putting, you know, all of these items into auction with them, and I just want to make sure that they're legit, and they'll be able to help you with that. So as I stated, you want to know the auction. Al is in here acting up. You want to know the auction house's schedule for auctions that day. So what happens is some auction houses have an early auction, the main auction, and then they have a late auction. So yes, there literally could be 3 auctions in one evening. Those are the best auction houses to deal with. And, you know, yeah, some of the auction houses that just have one auction for everything are okay. But what you're trying to do when you're going to the multi-tiered auctions is you want to normally go to the first, which is the early auction, and the late auction. When we go to both. We don't care at all about the main auction whatsoever, which is always right in the middle. So when you're going to those, especially the first one, if there's a 3-part, and I'm thinking of an auction house in particular that we used, and that has, thank goodness, helped us tremendously as far as getting amazing collectibles, oddities, antiques. So one of the things that you want to do when you're going to the very first, if there's a 3-part, like auction number 1, which is the early auction, is you want to buy in large quantities. I know that sounds so scary because you're like, wait a minute, there's like 7 tables. And what will happen is, sometimes they'll even do it by, they'll divide the room up into like 20 parts, and part, 1/20th of that room has like 7 tables and stuff underneath it. And if it's against a wall, there's probably stuff hanging on the wall as well. If you win that lot, you have to take everything. Did I say everything? Everything? Everything. So just imagine how much stuff that is. And some of it could be just outright boat anchors that have no value. Like a boat anchor definitely has value. I would love to find some more boat anchors. But let's just say it's a bunch of old, rusty, useless typewriters. You can't even take the letters off to use them for anything. You could end up with that. So make sure you preview first so that you know that if you want, lot number 20 out of the 20 big table lots in that room, that you're getting, the majority of this. And I would say the majority, meaning 50% or more of it, is stuff that you can turn over quickly for cash. And then the other 50% might be stuff that you're stuck with recycling, aka throwing away or donating. But when you donate, just make sure you go in and tell them I have, all of the stuff I want to donate. And they will give you 2 or 3 donation slips if you have the quantity for that. So you just write it off on your taxes, not a big deal. But so that's one way to get tonnage for almost no money. We have done that, especially filling our shops so many times that, we spent $50 maybe, most of the time it wasn't even 50, honestly. I'm thinking like with fees and taxes, it was probably like closer to, I would say between in the 30s, like $35, $50 probably max, because I always have a max. And we end up, with, getting, I'm making this up, but lot number 17, whatever the lot number is. And in that lot, there's usually 5 to 6 tables. I usually like to get the tables against the wall because then I know there's going to be stuff hanging on the wall as well. As I stated, underneath the tables, there's always a bunch of tonnage as well. So love, 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 love that. You can't lose with that. The other time that you can take, really good advantage of an auction that's like when they have more than one auction in a day, is when they have the late auction. The late auction is my favorite, and I can't even say the F word often enough, favorite, because at that point, the early auction happened. It happened. People went away. They, and usually that early auction sometimes happens in the morning. And then they still have previews for the stuff for the main auction. And then the main auctions, it depends on the auction house, but most of them start, I would say, between 5 and 6:30. And they go on for like 3-4 hours, sometimes even a little bit longer. And then they have the late auction. So yes, you have to outlast, outwit. I sound like that show Survivor, but it's true. All of your competition. So that means get sleep the night before, bring snacks, as I discussed in one of our videos, bring water. If you take medication, bring it. Like, you don't really want to be far out of the area. If you have, things to do, go do them, but make sure you're back, in time for and remember, you need to register. Once auctions start, especially once the main auction starts, and I'm talking not the early, the main, you cannot register. Registration is closed. Some auction houses will be nice and maybe, you know, give people 15, 20 more minutes, especially if they don't have a big audience. They don't have a lot of people calling in. These are things I discussed in the other videos. They don't have call-in bids. They don't have internet bids. They don't have left bids. So what they will do sometimes is extend the time, but a lot of times they don't do that as a courtesy to the people that actually showed up. So do not gamble on that. So once the auctions have started, it is done. So you need to register. Even if you register and come back later, you can do that as long as you're registered. So what we would do is, you know, do our thing at the early auction. We go away, we have business, take care of business. There were things that we bought that we knew that we could turn over immediately. I'll never forget, we had this art collection that we purchased that had, I'm going to say, like 150, 200 pieces of art. After that, we did not buy art for the longest time. But within that collection of art, we had a piece by, I think her name is Ketty Camuth, and a piece by this old English dude that came over on the Mayflower. I don't remember his name, and he used to paint scenes in Cape Cod when Cape Cod was beautiful, unlike it is now where it's all commercialized and stuff is all over the place. And he used to do like Martha's Vineyard, stuff like that in New England. And then we had another piece that was more of a modern art piece, a mid-century modern piece signed by the artist with a letter. And we actually have a piece in the Velvet Lounge room across the hall that I just love, and it's hanging on our wall, and it is large and in charge. And those 4 pieces had a value in the thousands, and we sold all of them except for the one that's hanging in our room across the hall. So the rest of the artwork I sold to a guy who was a dealer who would always come around looking for stuff. And I think we made maybe $700-800 from that. And then I had people who actually attended that auction that came to me because there were pieces, they just wanted certain pieces. They didn't want the entire gigantic collection. I mean, it was so huge. I mean, we had like people rolling this stuff out on, like, I don't know what they're called, like those cart things, sort of like when you go to a big box store. It was like on one of those things, and we had like 3 or 4 of them. And I remember thinking, my God, this is like a lot of artwork. And over time, we sold everything except for maybe 7 or 8 pieces. And obviously, that did not include the one piece that we kept. The other 7 or 8 we donated. And I mean, it took us, I'm going to say maybe a year and a half to go through that entire collection and sell it. And I mean, the profit was amazing, especially when I only spent like $30 on the entire collection. Amazing, just amazing. So that happened because I was willing to wait it out and go to the late auction. It would not have happened if that stuff was being sold during the main auction or even the early auction, because the early auction gets a lot of dealers. The late auction gets dealers as well, because hello, that's what we are. But this sounds so naughty, but I'm going to say it anyway. A lot of them are much older than we are. They don't have the stamina that we have. I mean, they seem to be working 24 hours a day. So that's, you know, one of our mantras is, which is not a new mantra, is work smarter, not harder. And, you know, there's this adage that I used to be a director of technology, and people had, and it would be like, what would MG do? And it was just the acronym. And yeah, so you have to kind of think like that so that you are able to get the great deals. You're able to get those unique items that, you know, other people just don't want to do the work, or they just don't have the stamina to stay up, you know, until 9:30 and then get home well after midnight because they went by their shops and unloaded the loot that they got. I'm just looking over there because my husband is rudely interrupting me as he knows I'm trying to finish this video. So sorry about that. The other thing is oh, there are times that things, the auctioneer will pass on items during the auction because no one seemed to have an interest, or if he or she, because I'm a female auctioneer, but if he or she, has a house limit, like they won't go below $10 on anything, then what you can do is still probably, not all the time, end up buying those items. And the reason that it doesn't always work is sometimes the owner is like, yeah, no, don't go below 10. I want my stuff back. If they say that, it's in a contract, they have to give the stuff back. If they're like, oh, we're moving to Florida, we really got to get rid of this stuff, we just want it all to go. And because of the house limit, it's not by item, it's by everything. The auctioneer, he simply can't sell it then. So what you do is call the auction house the next morning as early as they open. So if they open at 9, I will call them at like 15 minutes after 9. Give the guy and gal a chance to get some coffee. And then, tell them, there was a lot number 83, or, you had this lot that was a bunch of like signs that no one wanted, and I wanted to know if I could make a deal with you to get them. And what I would do is, versus offering them $10, which is a house limit, I would offer them like $15, because you shouldn't be buying them unless you can triple your money plus. So, those are some of the ways that we have worked it out. We've even gotten free items. Like, we've gone in there because, we made that phone call the next morning and knew that there were a few things that we wanted that didn't sell. And we'd look, and there'd be other stuff. And I remember asking the auctioneer's son, actually, what are you, actually it was my husband who asked that. He was like, oh, what are you going to do with this stuff? He goes, oh, we're probably just going to donate it or throw it away. And so my husband's like, well, do you mind? We have these shops, blah, 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 whatever. We come here all the time and, spend, hundreds of dollars or whatever over our many, many years of going there. And the thing is, we weren't big spenders. So I remember thinking like, Al, I can't believe you're asking that. This guy is going to give us anything. They know we're not big spenders. We buy a lot, but we just don't spend a lot on it. And lo and behold, a few times we actually got completely free items from, some of the auction houses. So, those are some of the ways that you can go into these auction houses. I'm just looking at my notes to make sure I didn't miss anything. Go into those auction houses and come out with things that are free, things that cost you literally pennies, as well as just building that rapport so that, and also like if the auctioneer comes across, a bunch of stuff that he knows he never specializes in, never wants to sell in his auction house, give them your name and number, tell them exactly what you're looking for. And, you can make another deal with them that way to get items. So thank you so much for tuning in to this series. I hope you found it informative. I tried to stay on track, but there's so much to cover. But just, please, watch the videos again if you have to, but give us a thumbs up, at least for effort. And if you didn't like it and you totally hate it, well, I guess give us a thumbs down, but please tell us why. Just be respectful. And thank you for joining us again for another episode in the Velvet Lounge.